Manager Class, Gerry George, Specialist for Cooling and Energy Efficiency, NRDC India, Ashish Jindal, Senior Consultant, SEforALL. Moderator for the session will be Pramod Singh, Senior Director, AEEE. I'd like to request all of you to please grace the dais. To give a short introduction for all, Kishore Kumar ji is an experienced energy sector professional with over 13 years of international expertise in energy, climate, finance and sustainability. He has demonstrated leadership in developing appliance efficiency policies and collaborating with various entities to implement impactful programs across India, Brazil and Southeast Asia. Further, Gerry George is a climate change and energy policy professional with over 8 years of experience focusing on sustainable energy solutions like comfort cooling, refrigerant transition and energy efficient appliances. He has played a key role in India Cooling Action Plan and contributes to global initiatives including National Cooling Action Plan and Sustainable Cold Chain projects. Further, Ashish Jindal ji is a sustainability and climate change professional with over 14 years of experience in energy efficiency and clean energy implementation, policy advocacy and consultancy projects across India, Southeast Asia and the Middle East. He holds an MBA in Energy Management, a BTech in Electronics and Communication and certification in Data Analytics and Project Management. Finally, our moderator for the session, Shri Pramod Singh, has a experience of 18 years in clean energy research and program management, working with governments and private sector, international agencies across Asia, North America and Europe. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much and thank you for having us. I'll start by saying that no amount of water is sufficient to fill up a bucket which is already leaking. So we don't have to worry about generation, transmission, distribution, energy storage, carbon sequestration for the portion of energy demand that can be avoided by energy efficiency efforts, which is also the focus of today's dialogue. So I have a couple of slides to set the context. We have heard dignitaries already talking about what's the importance of energy efficiency, not just for India, but for the whole world. And last year, several countries came together and they agreed to voluntarily reduce their energy to actually improve their rate of energy efficiency by a factor of 2. So I have a small quiz question for everyone. When we talk about improving our rate of energy efficiency, what does it mean? So audience can use your camera, scan this barcode. It will take you to a platform where you will see this question. And we would like to know your honest understanding. Please don't look at Google to find out the answer to this question. And if we can have this short poll. I hope everyone has been able to scan the link. And these are the live results that Megha is showing. We have about 9 responses so far. And I don't see any further change in the results, right? Maybe people were unable to. Okay, Megha, in the interest of time, let's move on to the results. So, great, yeah. So we see almost 35 people, 40 people have responded, and bulk of the responses, it actually means improvement in energy intensity of GDP in this case, because when we are talking about from a macro level, energy intensity of GDP is an indicator of how efficiently people are using, countries are using energy. And our previous speaker, Aman, also spoke about it. Can we go back to the slide? And that's the commitment which countries made, that we are going to double our energy intensity improvement by 2030. So we have a window of about, if we take the entire 10 years, beginning of this decade, 10 years to improve the energy intensity by 4% every year, and historical rate of improvement was only 2%. So one can imagine the type of required run rate that we have, and that too for the entire 10 years. And some of the latest statistics show that year 21, 22, 23, the energy intensity improvement has been in the range of 2% only. So in fact, it's not 4%, it's slightly more than 4%, given that we have only 6 years left. Despite knowing that energy efficiency has environmental benefits, job creation benefits, and other things, co-benefits that we talk about. Can we go to the next slide, please? Let's look at the scenario in India. This is a graph that shows how our energy intensity has improved over the years. Last decade, 2010 to 2020, the average improvement rate was 2.2%. And if we have to double it, that means the required rate is actually 4.3%. So imagine a scenario where our energy pie, the requirement is increasing, number one, so we have a bigger base. Then we have a bigger run rate to achieve 4.4%, in this case 4.3%. And then the next slide, which we'll talk about, when we, thanks to Aman, he already covered that in terms of energy intensity reduction, one lever is how you shift economic activity. So that's the structural shift. And the other important lever is how do you embrace energy efficiency. Now this is a forecast from IEA done few years back. And what they have projected, that when it comes to India as a country, the contribution of energy efficiency in the energy intensity reduction is going to play a very key role, to the extent of more than 50%. So that brings us to our topic for today. And so I'm going to ask the same question to all our panelists. Number one, how do you see the journey of India when it comes to energy efficiency so far? Where do we stand with respect to the initiatives that are already in motion? Are they sufficient to meet the 2030 doubling requirement? Or do you feel that we need to take extreme energy efficiency measures? We need to maybe reimagine the approach that we have been taking so far, because we have a aggressive target in place. So maybe I'll start from the right, Ashish, and then we go in that sequence.
Hi, thank you. Hope everyone can hear me, right? Thank you. So this is first of all, thank you for the opportunity, and I will relate it to more of a cricket scenario where, for example, we are actually starting chasing the run, and by 2030 we have to double our, you can say, run rate. And so the questions are basically two, and I want to break into two parts. One is what we have achieved till now, and where we are, and how we can double the rate. There are certain, you can say, intervention which I personally thought we can do to double the rate. So for example, if we see the India's work in the energy efficiency, I think two major institutions at the central level, Bureau of Energy Efficiency and Energy Efficiency Services Limited, has done a wonderful work till now. Whether it is about standard and labeling on the appliances front, whether it is about PAT scheme for the industry, whether it is about related to agriculture, and if I talked about EESL, we talked about largely Ujala program, where we almost, you can say, retrofitted about 380 million or distributed about 380 million LED bulbs. So this is one of the world's largest program, and we have seen other programs like Street Lighting National Program with 11 million installation pan India. We have seen programs in electric mobility, in the transportation sector, and municipality in the pumps. So idea is we have seen that energy intensity in last 20 years from the average of 1.3% to 2.2%, right? And now the basically responsibility for everyone and in the room, we can actually, how we can decode and go to the state level, for example, at a Gujarat level, how we can double the rate. Now, what I think is largely there are 4-5 buckets which we can work upon, and I think that could be the way towards doubling it. So one is largely how we can actually change the behavior of the masses. I think which is also the first inaugural point. The inaugural session point was that how we can change the behavior of those masses, and I think there is a very beautiful, let's say, concept which was like in the program by the Honorable Prime Minister called Life Campaign, which raised 75, you can say, principles which a person can adopt. And out of those, like for example, the basic thing is, can we go for a air conditioning setting of a temperature of 24 to 26 degrees Celsius. So every degree Celsius absolutely save 6 degree in the energy efficiency improvement. So this is one, but there can be more, how we can adopt more these intervention. I would like to relate one of a good, you can say, program led by Tata Power in Delhi called Urja Arpan. And what they do, they actually discuss that thing regularly with the consumers, with the people around it, and they reward them basically based on their intervention. So it's like a platinum, gold, and silver, and we have seen a lot of those intervention actually happen on the ground. So that is one in terms of the behavior. Second is, I think there is a lot of R&D which I personally feel should be there. For example, when we talked about basic appliances like ceiling fan, room air conditioners, they are the major energy guzzlers in the homes, in the residential sector. For example, India has about 500 ceiling fan of stock and AC of about 50 million. And every year we are purchasing almost, you can say, 10 million of ACs and about 50 million of ceiling fan. Now there are technologies, for example, BLDC, there are technologies in AC, which is like, say, about ISCR of 5.8. But how we can go to a higher, you can say, compressors, next generation compressors, next technological intervention in ceiling fan. For that, I think we have to plan some sort of a PLI, performance link incentive scheme 2.0, which can actually contribute towards these interventions. And if we see that intervention happen, a lot of global south is going to benefit with that. So that is second. Third is largely on these areas of energy efficiency intervention in the state. For example, we talked about industry. In Gujarat, it caters to about 40% of energy consumption, agriculture, transport, buildings. So there are very clear, you can say, intervention which could be done. For example, with the industry, the basic intervention which could be, I think, start with, for example, in the state is a motor replacement program. So motor in the industry consumes about 28% of energy, and this is a good, simple retrofit mechanism. How to do it? We can brainstorm it, right? On the agriculture piece, we know about drip irrigation, we know about the pumps, right? Already there are intervention, but how it can be speed up, I think that could actually double the rate. Then we talked about buildings. In buildings, I think two interventions are very important. For example, we have seen the success of an energy conservation building code in few states. And I think implementing code, adopting code, especially in the commercial, is going to be very helpful, right? So how fast we can actually notify that in the state of Gujarat, and how fast we can actually also implement ENS, which is for the residential sector, because the codes is going to get a lot of that clarity to the end user, to the ecosystem around it, to go for the doubling the rate, right? So similarly, there are other sectors, right? And finally, I'll talk about the fourth thought, which is around the finance. So on the finance piece, I think there are, we talked about energy conservation funds. There is a very good example of Rajasthan. I would try to relate when I was at ESL. So they introduce an energy cess which is of about 0.50 paisa, and this was given to the urban development. And what they do with that is there was a good amount of, you can say, money which was there in the energy conservation fund to do the intervention. So this is one of the thought, but there can be n number of other ways to actually, because if we have some sort of a fund, for example, we in the inaugural panel we discussed about the Jyoti Gram program, where there was some 90% of the contribution from the government and 10% equity from the masses. If something like this could be done, and we can plan it and implement it with the help of DISCOMs, urban development authorities, and across all stakeholders, this is going to actually double, and I think it will reach to our target much ahead before 2030.
Thanks, Ashish. Just a small, point for the audience. Last year, as a country, we added close to 15 gigawatt of renewable, around that range. Now, the two things which Ashish mentioned, if we just look at large-scale replacement of fans from inefficient to energy-efficient fans, the country will save 10 gigawatt, number one. If we go for a behavior change and increase the set point temperature, again country will save close to 10 gigawatt. We'll listen from our speakers more on this. And Kishore.
Sure, thanks Pramod. First of all, I would like to thank GETRI, and also ATP for inviting us. So, talking about doubling the energy efficiency, I feel very passionate to talk about energy efficiency because it's been 30 years for me in this area. And when I heard about doubling the energy efficiency in the G20 and also in the COP, what I realized is that those are coming from top at the national level, but when it comes to the ground level, they are a kind of gaps to execute them on the ground, and that has to be actually connected within all different departments and also within the different industries, all of them to actually achieve it. But before responding what need to be done, maybe I just want to give a kind of a background context on the appliances specific, because that's an area where we are more engaged into and also doing lots of work so many years. So if you talk about the current national program of standard enabling, there are totally 38 appliances and 16 are mandatory and 22 are voluntary. If you just want to get a glimpse of the scale of the program is, every year there is 6 million products are labeled in India. So it's a 6 crores of appliances are labeled every year. And if you talk about a kind of manufacturers participates, approximately 1,500 manufacturers part of the program, and also there are 20,000 models, etc. But it talks about impact, how it actually impacted the country in the since the program has been there since 2006. There is totally 600 billion units of electricity has been saved. Just imagine the kind of the volume that we are talking about. India every year consume approximately 1,400 to 1,500 billion units of energy, but through the SNL program just able to save 600 billion units of energy since the inception to date. And if you talk about the national savings of the BE program, all the programs, SNL contributes to 50% of it. So that's a kind of impact in the outreach on the ground through the appliances. Now, coming to the doubling the efficiency, what it means to the standard labeling program or to the appliances, I just want to give a bit of glimpse what does doubling means to this policy level. Currently, just take an air conditioner because it's a very hot topic around civil societies, also industries, and also the policy makers, how to reduce the peak demand, how to reduce the energy consumptions, because they're energy customers. So just to emphasize it, because of to mitigate that energy or to regulate energy consumption of ACs, in 2009, the BE has made this program mandatory. At that time, the efficiency levels, which is energy efficiency ratio, it's 2.3. And if you see now, it is 3.3. So the interesting part is efficiency improvement has been almost 50%. But if you see year on year, it's just 3%. Now if you want to make a doubling the energy efficiency, the next 6 years, the efficiency improvement need to be 6%. So the efficiency ratio, which is like a 3.3, it has to be 6 by 2030. That's a kind of a target that a national level has to be to make the doubling efficiency only for the air conditioners. I just want to drill down to the implementation challenges. When we say this, we have to implement at the national level. The biggest problem to the industry is about the kind of investment required to get to the technology. We do have a technology, like there is a 5x technology which says 7.2, IC. But comes to the commercialization and the cost of economics is totally unviable. And right now the industry doesn't have that scale of economy to to meet that to make that investment also. So they don't see the kind of a demand right now. And what I feel is, if not just the policy, there is also a requirement of market transformation programs. When you have national policies which are there, but at the ground level, the consumers are not aware about purchasing the 5-star completely. There may be awareness to the urban level. I know there is a cost involved into purchasing a 5-star, but at the same time, if the state governments and also these national governments can collectively come together to develop programs which are promoting 5-star rated appliances, which actually makes a big difference in terms of achieving doubling the energy efficiency goals. And to start with that, I think the BE and the CLASP, we both are working towards that market transformation program. One of the initiatives on the air conditioners, where we learned that currently there are 25 million ACs which are older than 8 years and which are inefficient actually. Those need to be replaced. And replacement doesn't come easy, and also consumer doesn't want to replace it because it's very high investment cost. So we come up with an incentive idea onto it. It's not just BE, it's not just the government, also the manufacturers are giving incentives, because the old ACs which need to be in a buyback, they can get a 3,000 rupees to the consumer actually. So right now in the process of approval within the ministry, we try to start with a pilot for 1 lakh units, which try to give incentives to the consumer, which are mostly industrial consumers, and also the incentive will be given by the industries also, to get the double. So I think totally there is a 10,000 rupees incentive will be coming, 5,000 from the industry and 5,000 from the governments. That's something the program level can be happening to nudge that doubling the efficiency. But this is just for the AC. Just imagine there are 38 appliances and there are 10, if you talk energy intensive, there are 10 energy intensive appliances. So right now we are trying to develop a report which says what are the key 10 energy appliances that need to be focused double. First is air conditioner, refrigerator, fans, and color televisions, in motors, industrial motor and household, even pumps and televisions, and LED lamps. So what are the efficiency levels to be there by 2030? Right now we are putting into the document, and also the kind of other implications to make that efficiency improvement by that time. I feel like the national level, if we do all that effort, that's great. But states like Gujarat, I was totally inspired by the way in the morning all our JP Gupta ji and also Jay Prakash have been so inspirational about politically scalable, economically viable, socially acceptable, technically also should be viable. I think those factors are very much related, and those connections should be there to the ground level, to the people. When I say people, I think there could be some kind of initiative from the state saying, we'll pick one city, we'll say, we ensure having the state or city buy only 5-star appliances. I think just imagine that the story and the kind of achievement it's going to be. It's going to be like a goosebump kind of thing. It's like the kind of peak growth that you're going to get, it's going to be cut down drastically, I should say. So I think that kind of stories or that kind of ambitions should have a states level also, so that we can achieve the doubling efficiency not on the national level, even from the city to state to and to the central level.
Thanks, Kishore. I think both you and Ashish, while summarized two takeaways. One, how do we scale the market towards the highest level of efficiency for technologies, solutions, products that are already available. And number two, how do we also look at future innovation so that there is technological advancement. So both strategies we need to look at. Here is an interesting graphic that shows that last year, and this is a government verified report from Bureau of Energy Efficiency, because of energy efficiency activities driven by the central government scheme, India saved 307 billion units of electricity. Out of 307 billion units, the contribution of standard and labeling scheme was roughly 90 billion unit. And if we convert 307 billion units into equivalent amount of solar capacity, India basically saved 200 gigawatt of solar. Imagine we have 70 gigawatt last 15 years that we have added. In just 1 year, country had saved equivalent of 200 gigawatts. So that's the power of efficiency. And this saving was achieved when AC, for instance, had a 3-star penetration. Bulk of the market is towards 3-star. Imagine if we move towards 5-star, the savings would have been so much higher. So, Gerry, over to you.
Thanks, Pramod. First of all, thank you, GETRI, AEEE and CEEW for inviting us for this panel. I'll focus on that topic, that how do we accelerate, not only double. So, while we understand, okay, there is a target set by the G20 leaders globally on doubling energy efficiency, I want to emphasize on the fact that what does it mean for India and how can we make it a reality? Because it's not just about reducing the energy, it's also about talking about job creation, talking about saving money, and at the same time providing access to energy to all. So my point is, even though we say that energy efficiency is the first fuel, we know it's the cheapest fuel, and it is in abundance in every country. But is this target that we are saying on doubling energy efficiency, is it really quantifiable? Because in terms of, if I compare it with renewable energy, I know the number, okay, we have to reach 500 gigawatt. Can we give the same importance to energy efficiency as well? Can we have the similar targets for energy efficiency? Okay, this is the number or the metric that we are having for energy efficiency as well, and it can be gigawatt, as rightly pointed out. Okay, this is the capacity avoided through energy efficiency by 2030. So that kind of target is more quantifiable, is what I feel, and that can be done at national level and at the state level. So that is, I think, something that India can think about from a national perspective, having more quantifiable and measurable targets. Secondly, the role of cooling. We know that we are currently at around 8% to 10% penetration of room AC, and at the same time, our space cooling and cooling demand is going to grow by almost 11x in the next 10-20 years. So the challenge is twofold. At one part, we are talking about providing thermal comfort to these 1 billion people, and at the same time cutting down the energy, the cooling demand at the same time. So how do we balance both? So we cannot air condition the whole country for sure. Thermal comfort in buildings cannot be only through mechanical cooling system. So it's high time that, even though we know that there is building energy conservation code, but we cannot re-emphasize that passive cooling strategies, be it building insulation, building design, all low-cost strategies like cool roof for vulnerable communities. I think that is the way to go at the ground level. And at the state level, I will say, while we'll talk about it more, but emphasizing on coming up with these local champions, like who will drive the energy efficiency activities in the state. While we have seen that, okay, at the national level there is a lot of policies, but at the state level, how do we bring this capacity building and energy efficiency champions in the state?
Thanks, Gerry. You mentioned an important point about passive design. So, as a supplier of energy, as a supplier of electricity, our flowage from power plant going to demand, but energy efficiency flows in the reverse way. And another thing, whenever we talk about efficiency, we always put that in context of operational savings. Itna mera bidli ka bachat hoga. But if done properly, if done in the right sequence, what we say, and it has been proven, that energy efficiency can also lead to capex savings. If you design your buildings properly, if you invest more on the walls, envelope, cool roof, then your investment on cooling, your investment on lighting, transformers, cabling, all of that can be reduced by a factor of 4. But you have to start from the first principles, start from the envelope. So thanks for bringing that point. I remember जसपाल भट्टी, जिन लोगों ने भी देखा होगा, उनका एक एपिसोड था जिसमें चूहे फाइल्स को कुतर गए थे. तो बोलते क्या समस्या है, कोई बोले ओके रैट ट्रैप ले आओ, ये ले आओ, ये बोला. तो बॉस ने फाइनली डिसाइड किया अच्छा हम लोग फाइल्स को ही डिस्ट्रॉय कर देंगे. देन टीम मेंबर्स उनके बोले ये सब तो रिकॉर्ड है, बोला डिस्ट्रॉय कर दीजिए, बट डिस्ट्रॉय करने से पहले 3 फोटोकॉपी बना के रखिए. सो सेम थिंग इज हैपनिंग टुडे. What's happening कि एक आपका green building consultant coming and designing better envelope, better day lighting, but जो आपका consultant काम कर रहा on air conditioners, on other mechanical equipment, he's following that same thumb rule. If for every square feet, for every 200 square feet, I need 1 tier of cooling. He's not factoring in the benefit of efficiency, that with efficiency in place, you can cool 400 square foot using the same 1 tier capacity. So that is our message. Try and follow the right sequence, and that brings me to the next question. It can't be done without a better integration. If we are talking about this department or somebody who is developing a factory or a building, better coordination between the different team members. But if we look at it from a government perspective also, there are several departments involved. I remember once I heard Dr. Ajay Mathur, who was the DG of BE for a very long time, saying that Bureau of Energy Efficiency has to coordinate with 18 different ministries, and that is the challenge, and which we see could be a challenge in states and also in Gujarat. So my question is, from the panelists, if you have to suggest maybe 1 or 2 key recommendations, interventions, how to bring this better coordination, because if we do a better job in coordination, I think we'll be able to reap the benefits of compounding. So
sure. Thanks Pramod. I think it's audible. Okay. So before, I really like the passive design idea.
It's not working.
Yeah, now it's yeah. So I really like the passive design idea because I have heard it somewhere that, for example, an individual has 3 sort of skins. One is basically this one, second is what we wear, and third is our building, right? And what is happening right now is we are not actually doing it in right manner. So for example, I am wearing coat, right? This is again a problem. Then we over-design the building, then there is another problem. So point is, if we go to our traditional roots, our buildings, our industry, our processes, so it's all boils down to our needs, and it also boils down to how we are doing it. Now coming back to the very important question, in terms of coordination and how we can strengthen it, I think I really want to take this example of Ujala program. I remember it how it was successful, and it leads to really bulbs changing on the ground, and it really leads to the LED transformation in the country. It was because it drives from the top, right? There used to be a weekly review mechanism by Honorable Prime Minister, the power minister used to be like, so we created at that time a dashboard, which was like a real-time dashboard. And ultimately then working with DISCOM, which actually is leading towards that chain, that distribution. And because it's giving them that sort of happiness that they are going to get that bulb at 60 rupees, which is they can pay that in 6 installment EMI. So overall, it is a win-win situation for everyone. Now, when we want to implement a program, ultimately we will miss that coordination, we'll miss that. And for example, this morning, which was very beautifully explained the program in Gujarat, where like people participation, right, institutional engagement, and getting the political leadership, and along with the what economic benefit a consumer get. So I think until we have proper awareness, like how this is going to benefit my pocket, right? For example, I give an example of smart meter program which ESL started. It was only 90 rupees per month DISCOM has to pay to retrofit the smart meter. And if they want to basically go for the meter reading, they have to pay 200 rupees per meter. So it was a win-win situation for the electrical utilities, that they can get smart meter and ultimately upgradation of infrastructure and all. So point is, I think if the benefit, if the institutional mechanism strengthen, I think then it leads to a lot of that, you can say, implementation on ground. I want to give one example of Japan, two examples which leads to a really on-ground intervention. One is in 2011 in Fukushima, there was a nuclear incident, right? And what happened was that people really agitated, and at that time I think 25% of the total pie of their energy was 25% was the nuclear. So they decided after that there is also issue of a proper disposal. So how we can actually plan a zero for the nuclear energy, and they planned various scenarios, and with that the first thing which they thought was energy efficiency, and it was becoming a movement in that geography, in that location, that they have to basically reduce the energy demand ultimately, and whatever the nuclear requirement is, if it can be catered to the energy efficiency. And we have seen in 2017, 18, 22 those results, where they have actually resulted in, the growth is there, but they have reduced about 15 to 25% of their energy requirement from the baseline of 2011. Similar example of Japan is a top runner program that is on the appliances. Very simple, not a mandatory thing. What they have done is like working with industry, working with, you can say, individual. They just say, for example, your weighted average efficiency value is, let's say, 3, and your product, the higher product range, let's say, available in the market is 5. They said, they motivated the industry, they motivated, for example, the user to go for the top thing. And this give a long-term, you can say, options for a consumer and also the industry to derive towards. So I think there are many ways, but important, as we discussed this morning, is a political will, economic angle, and how a leadership can define, and the motivation can define that to work towards that goal. And as Gerry was saying, if we have some measurable goal, for example, if Gujarat says that we want to reduce 10 gigawatt in next 1 year, I think in energy efficiency this is going to simplify a lot of things and we can work towards it.
Thanks. We hope that the State Energy Efficiency Action Plan has come up with those, quantifiable targets. We can always discuss whether those targets need to be, shifted upwards, downwards. But I think there is some initiative in that direction. Kishore, over to you for your very quick intervention.
Yeah. So I think Ashish already covered so many points on it. I like those things, and I just want to add a few of them on that part. So I think just imagine a situation right now we are in that never been before. For example, the Bureau of Energy Efficiency has developed a State Energy Efficiency Action Plan for each and every state. This is the first time ever actually. And this is a kind of a opportunity for each state to take the leadership role to contribute to the national determined NDC targets that we have. Now, when I actually heard about all of this, like the B is doing it and the states are doing it, one thing I was puzzled with was there was no sufficient financial budget to meet all those activities or to implement those activities. That's something I got like totally kind of a setback for me. Like if you have a plan, but if you don't have a budget and if you don't have an annual commitment like what to do, how to deliver, I think that's one of our first hurdle I feel. I think that something has to be catered definitely by the national and the state level. Now, just imagine by 2030, for example, Gujarat approximately has to contribute to reduce, let's assume like 50 billion units of electricity. So for doing it, it can't be like a single effort, it can't be a single entity, like they all have to, different departments have to come together. Now, I know there is a committee has been formed under this, a steering committee where they are going to it's being chaired by the Chief Secretary of the state and they'll be monitoring all the activities, how it's going to be done and what is the status and the progress. I think it has to be a kind of I should feel like a full commitment from all the departments. That kind of a motivation is required because just imagine like Gerry has said, even Ashish said, like if you don't do it, your state energy consumption right now is 140 billion units. In next 2 years, it may touch even 200 billion units. And we already have a steps, everything identified in the report. But you don't come to, you have a resources, you have a resource instance, you have a manpower, you have a technology in place, you just need a finance and you need a collective action to get to it. So I think we just need a right set of mindset to work towards it, and I think that is possible because imagine we never thought that there will be some state action plan, we never imagined it. So I think that kind of a commitment and the vision has to be come from the top to bottom, and also that kind of commitment to be required at each and every stakeholder in the state government departments, and that has to be kind of inspirational to the private sector and also to the every person in the Gujarat. Then this collectively, this kind of target can be achieved. This is my sense.
Thanks, Kishore. We have a session post-lunch that covers the financing, part. 2 examples of integration. We are talking about PM Awas Yojana scheme. It's for making housing affordable to people. And if we bring in the use of energy efficient appliances as part of the housing program, why don't we install energy efficient fans, energy efficient light? That will make it truly affordable. So that's one example of integration, how we can bring housing department, state designated agency, GETRI together and say, okay, this is how you can do it. Similarly, you're talking about PM Surya Ghar Yojana scheme. Along with rooftop panel, can we also distribute 2 BLDC fans, some LED lights? That's how schemes can be combined, compounded and elevated. So over to you, Gerry, for very high elevated pitch on what kind of integration possibilities that you see.
Yeah, I think most of the points has been already covered. I think the question, like my experience from the India Cooling Action Plan, because cooling is one sector that cuts across several ministries. So I think when it comes to development of a policy or a guideline or a scheme, I think we will have like all the ministries say, okay, we can develop this. Only the 2 questions remains, like who will implement it, where will the financing come from. So if we have those 2 answers ready before making any policy or any guideline, I think that should take care of this interministerial coordination. I'll give one example of Telangana, where we have been working on building code implementation. So right from the start, even though the ECPC comes under Ministry of Power and Bureau of Energy Efficiency, but we directly wanted to bring the housing board right from the start, and the building code implementation was integrated into their building approval system. So automatically, like if the building is approved, it has to be an ECPC compliant building. So that kind of coordination, if it happens right from the start, I think that's the way to go.
Thanks a lot. We have, very limited time, but we can take maybe 2 questions from the audience.
Hello, thank you for very useful insights. My name is Gaurav Patel. So this is a state dialogue, so I have some broader questions on a macro level. So in earlier presentation, Dr. Aman showed that in domestic consumption, we have around, in Gujarat, let's say it's around 35 to 40% consumption is from the domestic and commercial sector, whereas 40-45% from industrial sector. So, and if we see holistically, Gujarat rooftop is one of the highest adopter in India. So, if we see the patterns, the behavioral patterns of the domestic consumers, what they were using the electric appliance, particularly air conditioners, before using solar rooftop and after, that is a completely different patterns. So we are here DISCOM engineers also, so they can give more insights on that. So there are a couple of impacts of these particular behavioral patterns, because they will get free electricity because of net metering. But apart from that, there is also challenges from the DISCOM, the capacity of the lines, the particular investment, or the additional power procurement requirement, the DSM impact. There are a couple of things related to all this increased demand, and users are because they are relaxed.
Sir, please come to the question.
Yes.
Yeah, we are
so my question to panel and over this forum is, we are making policy on the perspective of the technology. So this is fine. This is very good aspect that we increase the overall improvement in the technology, but the adoption, because that is once installed, but it is utilized for 8 years, 10 years, 12 years. So that is a bigger impact on that. So please consider this point while for the policy implementation or the larger community engagement. So that was my perspective.
Thank you. I don't see any more hands, so there is one.
Sir, I am Chintan Hindu from. I am Chintan Hindu from DISCOM PGVCL. My question is, we are focusing in domestic consumer for air conditioner, but our component is lighting sector and fan sector. So we have committed for BLDC technology for fan, because जो 30 to 40% difference है जो BLDC और 5 star to conventional, और ऑलमोस्ट ऑल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन और जो ग्राउंड लेवल्स जो होम्स है उसमें कोई भी कंज्यूमर्स ने कभी फैंस चेंज नहीं किया होगा लास्ट 10 ईयर 15 ईयर्स जब से इंस्टॉल हुआ होगा. तो वी हैव एनी प्लानिंग फॉर BLDC फैंस फॉर एज अ गवर्नमेंट सब्सिडीज?
That's a question for the state designated agency and other departments to answer. What has been done from the central government is, first of all, they have made star labeling mandatory.
Yes.
So it takes out some of the inferior fans from the market. आपका minimum 1 star 55 watt के आसपास है, 70 watt वाला legally can't be manufactured and sold. And then EESL has come up with a program similar to their lighting program on how to push 5-star efficient fans, mainly BLDC in this case, in the market at an affordable price. तो अगर आपका मेन चीज जो बैरियर है वो प्राइस बैरियर है, अगर आप प्राइस बैरियर को धीरे धीरे कम कर दे रहे हैं, है ना, तो आपका मार्केट में अडॉप्शन बढ़ेगा. ऑल्सो सप्लाई इज इंक्रीजिंग. Earlier there were few players, now there are so many other players, and maybe Kishore, you want to just respond to that?
Sure. So I think one thing, so it's a great point, and I like it when you ask the question. And right now in India, it's everything flooded with the induction motor. It's a very high energy consumption compared to the BLDC. Right? So every year there is a 50 million of production for ceiling fans, and just like Pramod has already told about, the PE has made this program mandatory, and all these innovations are like right now in the lower category of star labeling. But at the same time, they're trying to push for the high star levels also. Just to give an example, I think from 2 years from now, there will be no induction fans in India. That policy has been approved by the BE. So it means all the inefficiencies the policy revision or the upgradation has in such a way that all the induction motor fans which are there, they will be out of the manufacturing. They have an option to switch to only the BLDC. So that timeline has been already in place, and we are all like very much excited about the kind of transformation right now it's taking place, because when I think the program has become mandatory just like, not even 1 year, actually just been less than, I think 1 year before I guess. Now if you see, before that the participation of the program was like hardly 4-5 lakhs, but now it's like 45 million fans has been registered under the BE program. So that kind of accountability from the industry side, it shows that the next 2 years or down the line, you don't see induction motor fans, or you can see only the BLDC technologies in the future.
I just want to add one thing. I think from DISCOM perspective, it is very important, and we have seen in Delhi in few DISCOMs, then they can start with a DSM program. So for example, I think we can discuss that, how we can work with GRC here, file a petition, get a DSM program running, and the program can include, for example, one is option is ESL, second is you can run your own program where you can identify appliances like ceiling fan, room air conditioners, maybe for other intervention areas also like pumps, right, and others, depending upon the peak what it came for the particular DISCOM, and you can actually lead that program of implementing in your geographic area. I think this is a very important thing in identifying intervention and implementing, because we need such, for example, programs at the local level where 4-5 DISCOMs, private DISCOMs, to lead that, and they can actually transform into the market.
Great, thanks. And both CEEW AEEE will be going to work with GETRI and GETRI on how to identify such programs. So great. With this, I thank everyone.
Just one last question, if you have time for me. Very quick one. Very interesting discussion. I think one point which Kishore mentioned is about budget allocation and actually taking a step forward. I think you mentioned enough for technology available, and I think collectively we agree on that. Are you guys seeing any DISCOMs proactively going for at-scale pilots in terms of actually implementing this kind of programs which you have seen, or are you seeing that intent is there? No question. Intent is there from most of the people, but are you seeing any particular progress which has happened where there is a budget allocated and at-scale pilots have been running for this, or it's still at a discussion level as a panel? Because you are seeing across India, you are seeing the view from India, so just wanted to see if any of you have that view.
We have seen that in Delhi and also in Maharashtra. Maybe in the next session, panelists will also share examples from how state utilities, with the approval from regulators, are embarking on such programs.
Yeah, maybe I can add. Yeah. So I think right now states and the national level trying to figure out the budget thing. But this parallelly, what I've seen, the kind of the movement is within the civil societies and also the funding organizations, because these reports are so promising to look at it for every state, that they are looking forward to come to collaborate with the states to support on certain activities. Saying we would be happy to support on implementation of compliance act. For example, like CLASP, we are working with some of the states to support them to implement the energy efficiency compliance framework, under SNL program. And as part of it, B has also plans to provide a kind of support to the states to do it. So I think that movement just started, I should say, and I'm sure like in the next couple of years there will be so many other funders will be coming into the picture. The kind of movement right now is on the ground, because I think all the funders and all of them, they have seen so much of talking at the national level. But if you see the state level, things are like picking up, and things are very positive story. So I think they are very much inclined to work with the states and to support them and to see the result on the ground. That's something is moving towards to looking at the way we are